I actually was working my first day as an assistant principal in one of our high schools. I was hired by a Caucasian lady who had a love for all children. And she said to me on my first day in a meeting with her, she said, it's a lot of black boys at our school that's being suspended and expelled for things that aren't really happening on our campus, but it's trickling onto our campus and it's having a negative impact on them. She says, you're going to create something that's going to solve this problem for us. And
that wasn't a question. It was a directive.
A directive. Wow. And Gentleman's Quest is what I created, but initially it started as a school club. So okay. It was not a 501c3 organization. It was not recognized by the government. It was literally a school club that was run the same way, except we weren't looking for funders. We weren't looking for donors. I've always worked part-time at my local church. Mm-hmm. And so I used to, at that time, I would take my entire check and put it into GQ.
Okay. From the church.
From the church.
What church is that again? I'm sorry.
The Center for Manifestation.
Center for Manifestation. Okay. Yeah. What school was it that you worked at when this happened?
Chamberlain High School.
Chamberlain, gotcha. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm old and I forget. Okay.
So it started as that. We used to take a cohort of 33 kids that we would work with. And the idea was literally to just immerse them into so many experiences that it would provoke them to think differently about their life and their future. 4 years later, I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore from the confines of the public school system. It was becoming a conflict of interest because now the same students that I'm supposed to be suspending, no, I just want to be their advocate, because the reality was if they were of another skin complexion, they would have parents or whoever coming down there to advocate for them that could possibly cause the level of consequence to be different. But our kids, they were being stuck with certain consequences just because a book said that or a person wanted to do that and nobody was advocating
for fighting for them. Right.
Yeah. And that's really, I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I decided to transition from the school district in 2018 to officially launch Gentleman's Quest of Tampa. So that's when it became Gentleman's Quest of Tampa Inc. So that's when we registered it. So 2014 was when we started it as a school club is how I describe it. Gotcha. 2018 is when it was officially launched as an actual entity. And then it's grown ever since.
Yeah, it really has. So how do you, I don't even know if I even know this.
You gonna publish this in the story?
It's a feature story. It's not going in a newspaper.
Because
it's going to an instructor.
37.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus, you're young. I mean, you can still be my child, but you're young. I thought you were honestly, I thought you were like 33.
Oh, 33.
32. So you're from Fort Pierce. What was growing up like for you?
I grew up in a single parent home, where I had just my mother. My father recently died in the last 4 weeks, but I never met him until I was in my 20s. Now, Fort Pierce is a very small city. He lived in Fort Pierce with me. He had 6 other kids, and 4 of us were the exact same age. But
I'll tell you something when you're done. Go ahead.
But I never officially met him until I was in my 20s, and that was only a phone call conversation. So I never actually met him face to face.
Never, not once?
Not once met him face to face. We had one phone call conversation in my life, and then after the one phone call conversation, he left me a voicemail once, and I left him a voicemail once. And then that was pretty much the extent of our relationship. My mother has always worked 3 jobs. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm listening.
My mother has always worked 3 jobs, still to this day with no children in the home. She still works those same 3 jobs. Back then, it was because she needed to pay bills. She still uses that same excuse with no people in the home with her. But I was the oldest of my mother's children. So because she worked 3 jobs, I was the one that was responsible for cooking, making sure that they did their homework, did their chores. That was my chore. So I never was responsible for cleaning or anything like that. I just had to be responsible for them.
How much older are you than your siblings?
3. The next youngest is 3 years younger than me.
And then
another 3 years younger than them.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're all 3 years apart each.
That's interesting. What did you when you and the reason I smiled when you said what you said about your father is because I literally have the exact same story.
Oh, really?
No, not even playing. The only difference is he didn't live around the corner.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But like I was in my 20s when we met. I met him face to face twice, maybe. I always laugh and people was like, "Oh, what'd your father give you?" And I said, "A gut and 2 beers." That was all he's ever done for me. Literally, he bought me 2 beers once, and I was like, I only took them because like he was giving them to me because I didn't like beer. And then like I have a gut because he had a gut. But other than that, no relationship. Lived in Orlando.
Oh wow.
Never saw him. How did that impact why you do what you do?
So when I initially started Gentleman's Quest, it was never an intention to start it. I started it because it was a directive, right? So I didn't grow up thinking I'm going to start a program to help fatherless children. However, that is what it literally has become. A program that serves primarily kids without fathers in the home. And I think it helps them to understand that they're not alone. And it's kind of interesting because it's not like we're the only ones in the world that are like this, but however, sometimes people can feel that way. Mm-hmm. I have a 2nd grader now that I'm working with who feels that way. I saw him crying the other day and I said, "Why are you crying?" And he says, "Because everybody else is talking about what they did with their dad over the weekend and I don't have a dad." And so sometimes people just feel like they're alone.
They're alone in it. Isn't that interesting? That your growing up ended up being your destiny.
Yeah.
Unintentionally.
Yeah. Unintentionally. It's something that I do think about all the time.
Do you? What do you think?
I think about that all the time, but let me go back to, I had a meeting earlier today with my pastor and I was telling him that I didn't even realize that I grew up I didn't realize that living in a single parent home was considered dysfunction until I moved to Tampa and recognized how many people had single parent households and all of that type of stuff. Because a lot of people in my friend group only had a single parent home.
Right.
Or it was just not really a topic. My mom tried to immerse me in so much stuff to keep me busy that I never felt without.
You didn't even notice the absence.
Yeah. Until I became an adult. And I'm like, wait, I don't know how to do this. Would I have known how to do this if I had a father? That's really what that really drives me. Because that is really the force behind the experiences that we create. I don't want kids to grow up not having certain experiences just because they only have one parent or just because their parent or parents can't afford to send them to do certain things. Mm-hmm. So we want to kind of take those excuses away, and we just want to immerse our students in so many experiences that they get to make educated decisions about what they want to do in their future.
Right. There's no limitation.
There's no limitation.
How many young men would you say have gone through the program since you started it? And we can take it back to maybe you can take it back to the 14, or if it's easier to calculate that through from 18 on.
For the first 4 years, there were 132. We did 33 kids a year for the 4 years. Okay. And then since then, we've done 25 kids a year. So we reduced it to 25 in that cohort program.
Right.
But in addition to the cohort program, I don't know if you realize, but we also do the site-based programs now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where we go into the schools, and even though it's not a cohort program, it allows us to impact even more kids every year. So the program has grown from 33 kids a year to now we're doing 402. Last year we did 402 kids.
There's video from FNY of Jill.
So based on that, we're definitely in the thousands now. Definitely over 1,000.
Hold on a second. Were you talking to me, Chris?
No.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. That's a daunting task. When you think about when you think about the lives that you impact and so many people that your work and the mentors and other people work with you impact, does it get scary?
I wouldn't say it gets scary. I said the thing that I focus on the most is just trying to make sure, or I guess if we say it's scary, the scariest part is always just making sure we're doing what's right for children. Because I feel like if you make a wrong choice, then you could be impacting their future. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Because you never know how kids are going to conceptualize things, or what level that seed is going to be imputed into them, and how that's going to end up growing. And so I always try to be cognizant of that.
It's funny you say that, because that's what you're essentially doing, planting seeds.
Yeah.
How that seed grows kind of depends on what you do and then what they do. Has there been a case where you've had a kid that you just felt like never got it, couldn't get through?
So
I hate to say lost one, but you know what I mean. Like
there have been cases, but what comes to mind first is not even the never got it. What really makes me think that is, for example, we had a kid that wanted to go to a Full Sail University in Orlando.
Right.
His mother was dead set against having to get a student loan, a parent loan for him, or pay for any of his college expenses. She felt like if you want to go to college, then that's on you. We, through a partnership that we created just for him with Full Sail, was able to get him a full scholarship. His program was $72,000. But they had a little line in fine print that said, it is a scholarship. You don't have to pay it back unless you drop out and not complete the program, or you fail a semester. Or it really was drop out, because even if you failed, you could
make that up. Yeah.
So he ended up dropping out. And the thought has always been in the back of my head. So now this kid at that time, he would have been 19, 20, dropping out. Now he has $72,000 in debt.
Right.
Is that our fault? Like, sometimes I think like that.
Yeah.
Did we push him because we're always trying to make sure they're going to college, trade school, or the military? You got to have a plan.
Yeah.
So that's the type of thing that I think about. Like, did we set him up for failure because he said he wanted to do it? Our job is to kind of help you get there, but then, you know what I mean?
But then you didn't really want to go there. So what part did you play in that?
Yeah. And I know it. People have said, no, you can't take that on yourself. No. But those are thoughts those are the scariest parts for me. Really.
Right. But you don't have any apprehensions about what you're doing and, losing a kid and who's just like, I'm not doing this. Because having been around the program long enough, I could see the genuine interest from these young men to be a part of it.
Because for a kid to even come into our program, they, as well as their parent, has to do an interview. And both have to commit to the requirements of the program, not getting in trouble in school, no arrest. Even if this was their life before, we're working together to accomplish that. Most times, kids that don't want it will tell me straight up, I don't want that. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then we don't accept them because they told you to your face. Most times, kids that say it and their parents that say it, as long as we're up front with, your kids are going to have to come every Wednesday night without fail.
Yeah.
As long as they commit to that, most times they're going to be successful because they're going to commit to the process. We try to weed the ones that are not going to commit out of it.
Or who are half on the fence kind of about it. This is going to sound like a really odd question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Describe Fort Pierce for me when you were growing up and where you lived and kind of what that neighborhood and that environment was like.
Fort Pierce is a very small town. Well, I say very small, but when I was living there were about 60,000 residents in Fort Pierce. Yeah. I say it was small because there was no mall, there was no skating rink, there was nothing for kids to do in that sense. Yeah. So we always had to drive to the next county up or down to do any of those types of things. From birth to 8th grade, I lived in a duplex community, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
It was 3 rows of duplexes. And in 8th grade, my mother bought and built her first home, which is where she still resides, and I was there until I graduated high school. I was always enrolled in A schools, top schools. My high school, when I was there, was ranked number 21 in the nation when it came to academics.
Your high school?
In high school.
What high school is that? Fort?
Lincoln Park Academy.
I almost said Fort Pierce High School. Lincoln Park.
Lincoln Park Academy.
What year did you graduate high school?
2004.
2004. Okay.
So what makes it extra special is because Lincoln Park Academy was originally an all-black school before integration and all that.
We're all Lincolns. My mother's high school was Lincoln. It was all black. Yeah. Okay.
In fact, Zora Neale Hurston taught at Lincoln Park Academy.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Her house was right across the street. So for it to come from being that to being a school that became primarily white and now had reached the ranks of being one of the top schools.
Isn't that something? Yeah.
Interestingly enough, though, even though I went there, none of my siblings went there, even though they came up after me and I was always gifted, quote unquote, or whatever. My mom, my elementary school, all the way to high school, they did not attend any other schools that I went to. And
was there a reason for that, or just that?
She always, they don't like to hear it like this, but she just felt like they were different. So she felt like I was gifted. And she felt like
sense. Now, your siblings, are they sister, brother, or?
It's sisters.
Both sisters. So you're the only boy and the oldest.
I'm the only boy. Yep. So to my mom, because I was the only boy without a male figure, for her it was very important for me to always have male teachers.
Right.
So I remember her coming out to the school saying, "Hey," when I was in 6th grade, and that's when I started at Lincoln Park, because Lincoln Park was from 6th grade to 12th grade. Mm-hmm. When I started at Lincoln Park, I had all female teachers, and my mom says, "Nope, you have a black male teacher there. I need my son to be in
that class." Yeah.
And
so you used the word. You said your mom felt you were gifted. Do you feel like you're gifted? Because you didn't sound like that.
I really always say that I don't feel like I'm smarter than anybody else. I feel like one of the things that just makes me different is simply the fact that if I feel like God has given me any kind of dream, gift, talent, or anything, I'm not going to sit on it. Whereas you have a lot of people that live with dreams, like, I want to do this, or one day I'm going to do that. I'm just not that guy. If I want to do it, I'm about to figure out how we're going to accomplish it. And I'm just start putting feet to my faith and walk it out.
Mm-hmm. Did you say put your feet to your faith?
Yep. I always say that. Put feet to my faith and walk it out.
I love it. Have you ever gotten any grade lower than a B?
In college, no. In high school, I do not remember.
Then that's a no, because you would. So have you gotten anything lower than an A?
In college, no.
So you had straight A's.
Yeah.
In every class in college.
Yep.
And USF, right?
USF, my master's program at UT, my EDS program at Nova. Oh, I'm wrong. Nova, I got my first B when I had Dr. Safransky in educational law. That was the only B I made. And I still hold that against him to this day, because I feel like but I will say I'm one of those people. I'm such a literalist, legalist, all of these bad religious terms. But in the sense that I remember when I took a class at UT, I can't remember the class, but I remember the instructor. Her name was Dr. Harrison. And at UT, it's not just A, B, C, D, F. It's A, B, 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 C. I don't know if you've heard of that, but they do that. And so you can get an A, B, and that's not the equivalent of an A, and it's not the equivalent of it's between
it's like an A minus or a B plus.
Yes, which is still not a 4.0. It's like a 3.5 or something.
I wouldn't want that.
I wouldn't want it either. But she gave me a AB one semester, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this lady gave me this AB. And so I said, okay, well, I got an AB now. It doesn't make me any difference now. I don't even have to try as hard. So the next semester, I don't try. I'm not trying. And I ended up seeing her somewhere. And I said, hey, I just want to ask you this question. I don't know if you remember, but I was in your class last semester and you gave me an AB and I don't really know why. And she says, oh, that was a mistake. You should have got an A. Oh my God. And I was like, oh my God. So she made the grade change, but I'm like, oh my God, now I got to get all this work done. Because
so you based everything after that on something that ended up being a mistake to start with.
That's so bad. But
no, that's funny. So you still got an A.
I still got an A.
So you have a bachelor's from what, a Bachelor of Science or Arts? Arts. In sociology from USF.
Mm-hmm.
A master's in
mathematics from UT.
You got a master's in math. Okay, from UT. And you are current. And what was Nova?
Nova was my educational specialist degree.
Okay. And when was that?
And it was in ed leadership. So educational specialist in ed leadership. Okay. It's like the halfway point, and it's only really relevant in the field of education, but it's the halfway point between the master's and the doctorate.
And a doctorate, okay. So USF was what, 2008?
2007.
Oh, and then you moved fast.
So I actually came to USF having already earned my AA.
Okay.
I earned my AA 24 days before I graduated high school.
So you did a dual enrollment in high school. Okay. The master's was what year?
2010.
You got to look at it. Okay. Nova.
2012.
And now you are currently enrolled
at Southeastern University
in Lakeland, right?
Yep, in Lakeland, doing organizational leadership.
And that's a PhD program.
Yes.
And what's your expected graduation?
My expected graduation date is December of 2025.
Okay. All right. So I want to be absolutely clear. In all of your postgraduate work after high school, you have gotten 1B in all of that. And yet you don't know if you're gifted. It's a legitimate question.
It is a legitimate question.
So let's talk about.
So if you look up my transcript, I don't believe my transcript from like elementary when they test you and all of that. I don't think it said gifted on it like how it does now.
Right.
Kids.
It doesn't have to say it.
No, but I'm just saying I wasn't tested gifted or anything like that.
They need to test you. Your mama saw that. You were probably on adult conversations at 3. Mother, what's for dinner?
I never watched cartoons.
You never watched cartoons ever?
Nope, never.
Why?
I just wasn't a cartoon kid. My godmother loved cartoons. She would bring me to her house and she would try to get me to watch. She loved Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
But I would never sit and watch it because she would get so mad because she would be like, all kids watch cartoons. I would always say,
you're like, not this one.
No, I never watched cartoons. I watched Law and Order. I was always watching that kind of stuff. I've seen all 25 seasons of Law and Order.
Davis, for real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've never heard of a kid who's never watched cartoons either. That's different. But you know what? That's who you are. What do you think, if you had to point to one thing, is a thing that makes you you?
What makes me me?
Do what you do.
What makes me me, I think, is that I'm not afraid to be me. Okay. Because there was a time in my life where I was, to a degree, afraid to be me. Not to a degree, I was. And I guess what I mean by that is what comes to mind was once I reached my adult years, I started to think that I was less than adequate because I didn't have a father at home. I felt like there were so many things that I didn't know how to do because I didn't have a father at home. And then my mom, as much as she loved me, her one weakness was when she was mad at the world or mad at me. One of the things that she would just bring up, you're gonna be just like your daddy, or you know, that type of thing. So it was just in my head, and
you were like, I don't want to be.
Correct. And I always used to think, man, if I ever get married, that ain't even gonna last, because I ain't gonna know how to do this, I ain't gonna know how to do that, and it caused me to develop this fear, which caused me not to even pursue anybody, no dating, nothing, because I just had this fear that I wasn't gonna be adequate. Why would I want that? Because I'm not gonna know how to do all this. And even though she kept me busy, I was always in academic programs.
You didn't feel like you were a part of sports?
I was not a part of sports. I was not a part of anything other than academic type enrichment programs. I mean, and I say that, but I do remember, I do remember in middle school one summer her putting me in some type of police program for a summer or so, but it was always, I don't know.
But that's not really, I know what you're saying. It's always something that's like growth oriented or educational kind of stuff.
So
when you say you felt like you couldn't do certain things, when you mean like repair stuff, fix, I mean, that kind of stuff?
Mm-hmm. And then all of that kind of stuff, but I also had no desire to, you know. I had no desire to.
We twins, bro.
I had no desire to, but I thought, just from watching TV and stuff, I just thought, okay, this is what men are supposed to do, and we're supposed to be doing it, and I just had no desire to. And so part of me learning to be me and be comfortable with being me was, okay, you're going to always make enough money to make sure that you can pay people to do this stuff and that you're never going to have to do it.
Bro, my phrase is keep America working, hire out. I can't do it, I'm not going to lie.
That was really like a freeing concept to me. Because I literally used to feel that.
It's a hard feeling, especially when you don't have that. So I was blessed, I mean, to have an uncle, you know, two uncles, and my grandfather who was always there. But, you know, it was the same thing that you were saying. Like, you look around, everybody like, your dad is here, and your dad's like, not mine. But it never bothered me. And, you know, it wasn't until, like I said, I got older that I realized that, hey, this is off. You know, something's different. So, well, okay, so obviously that changed. Sorry, this thing is pulling on my shirt. That changed because in the year of our Lord 2000 and what, you got married.
It did. The interesting part is the fact that I married someone that actually likes to do that stuff. And this is how I know God will give you the desires of your heart.
Everything you need, whether you know you need it or not.
And she's very girly, very soft, but she grew up with a male a father that fixed and repaired stuff for a living. And he taught her how to do it.
To be able to do it herself. Yeah.
And I remember coming in her house before we got married once, and she was sitting on the floor, and she had taken her 55-inch TV apart. And so it was in pieces, and she was putting it back together. And I was like, why would you do that? You can just buy another one.
Why would you do that?
And to her, she was enjoying it. She was literally enjoying it.
And figure out how it worked and then to fix whatever it wasn't.
Yeah.
God bless.